I never imagined burying my son at 5 years old. No parent does. Yet there I was, standing in front of Noah's small white casket, his favorite blue blanket tucked inside with him because he always said it made him feel safe. Safe. Something I failed to give him when it mattered most. The weight of that realization crushed me more than the whispers of the people in the pews behind me. They weren't just mourning Noah. They were judging me, dissecting my life with Claire. I could feel their stares burning into the back of my head, their speculation like daggers. Where's his wife? I imagined them saying, how could she not be here? Small towns thrive on gossip, and I knew my absence wouldn't be the only topic of conversation anymore. No, now they had Claire's glaring absence to feast on. But the town didn't know what I did. Only minutes before stepping into the church, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. I glanced at it out of reflex, expecting condolences or another logistical question about the service. Instead, what I saw made my blood run cold. The picture was so sharp it could have been taken moments ago. Claire, lounging by a pool, her skin glowing under the Hawaiian sun. A man, young, tanned, and smug, had his arm around her. A cocktail sat in her manicured hand. Below the photo, the message read, "Thought you should see what your wife is really doing today. A concerned friend." For a moment, the image didn't compute. My brain refused to link the woman I had built a life with to the person in that photo. Claire wasn't at an important business meeting, like she'd told me. She wasn't sitting at the front row of our son's funeral, holding my hand. She was sipping margaritas in paradise, tangled up with some stranger. The weight of betrayal was immediate, but there was no time to process it. My mother's hand gripped my arm as she whispered, "Jacob, you're shaking." I was. The phone trembled in my hand until I shoved it into my pocket, like burying it could make it disappear. It didn't. That image was burned into my mind, taunting me every time I blinked. Still, I couldn't break down. Not now. I swallowed the rage clawing up my throat and nodded at the funeral director. Somehow, my legs carried me to the front pew, and I sat where Claire should have been. I kept my head high, shoulders square, refusing to give the town the satisfaction of seeing me unravel. But my thoughts were anything but composed. They raced through the past few months, desperately trying to connect dots I hadn't noticed before. Claire's late-night calls. Her sudden work trips that always seemed urgent. The way she started talking about needing space when Noah's condition worsened. I had chalked it up to grief, thinking we were handling things differently. I'd been a fool. As the service began, I clenched my fists, nails digging into my palms to keep from losing it. The pastor spoke about Noah's love for life, his boundless energy even during the hardest days of his illness. My chest tightened when he mentioned Noah's favorite pastime, coloring his white roses with food dye. I could almost see him again, his small hands stained blue and purple, his giggle filling the hospital room. My eyes flicked to the bouquet on his casket, white roses as far as the eye could see. Claire hated those roses. She'd said they were too plain, but I insisted. They weren't for her. They were for Noah. She didn't deserve to be part of this moment anyway. Then, my phone buzzed again. Another message. This time, it was from Claire. "Sorry I couldn't make it. Important business meeting. I'll make it up to you." Make it up to me? Make up for skipping her son's funeral? Make up for sipping cocktails while I laid Noah to rest? Rage flooded through me, hot and consuming. It burned away the grief, if only for a moment, and left me with one single thought. She had no idea what was coming. I wouldn't crumble like she expected. I wouldn't be the grieving widower she could manipulate. Claire may have abandoned us when Noah needed her most, but I would make sure her betrayal didn't go unanswered. That promise solidified as I stood to deliver the eulogy. I looked out at the crowd, at the faces of neighbors, co-workers, and family friends, and forced myself to speak. Every word was for Noah. Every story about his joy and strength was a vow to protect his legacy, to ensure Claire's actions wouldn't taint his memory. I didn't let my voice crack. I didn't shed a tear. I saved those for later when I was alone. Today wasn't about my pain or Claire's betrayal. Today was about Noah. But deep down, I knew one thing for certain. Claire thought she could betray me and walk away unscathed. She was wrong. So very wrong. The funeral reception was a charade. People offered their condolences with pitying eyes and rehearsed lines, shuffling through my parents' living room as though it were some kind of performance. Plates of untouched cookies and casseroles cluttered every surface. The air buzzed with whispers, the kind that made the hair on the back of my neck stand on end. Everyone knew Claire wasn't there, and their silence said more than their words ever could. I moved through the room like a ghost, smiling stiffly at the neighbors, nodding absently at distant relatives. The sympathy felt like an insult, not because it wasn't deserved, but because I didn't want their pity. I wanted their honesty. I wanted someone to grab my arm and admit they'd seen the photo too, that they knew what she was doing, that they saw what she had become, but no one did. Claire's parents, Diana and Howard, hovered near the kitchen, their presence as unwelcome as their judgmental glances. They'd barely spoken to me all day, but I could feel their unspoken accusations. To them, I'd always been the problem. I wasn't attentive enough, not devoted enough. Claire was their golden child, and nothing she did could tarnish that image. Diana finally approached me as I stood by the mantel, staring at a framed photo of Noah. It was one of my favorites, his gap-toothed grin as he held up the results of one of his science experiments. The petals of a white rose were dyed a brilliant shade of blue, his hands streaked with food coloring. He'd been so proud that day. I clenched the frame tightly, the glass cool against my palms. "Jacob," Diana said, her voice laced with a sweetness that didn't match her sharp eyes, "you've been so strong today. It's a shame Claire couldn't be here, but she's grieving in her own way. You know how difficult this has been for her." Difficult for her? My grip on the frame tightened as I turned to face her. She looked at me with feigned concern, the kind that barely masked the criticism underneath. Her words felt like a slap, each syllable digging deeper into my growing rage. "I'm sure it has," I replied, my voice colder than I intended. "Though I imagine Hawaii is a nice distraction from all the difficulty." Diana's expression faltered, just for a moment. She quickly recovered, her lips pressing into a thin line. "Jacob, grief makes people act out of character. Claire needed some space to process everything. You should try to be more understanding." Understanding? My jaw clenched as I fought to keep my composure. She didn't know, did she? Or maybe she did, and she just didn't care. I wanted to shout at her, to show her the picture on my phone, and force her to acknowledge the truth. But I didn't. Instead, I turned away, setting the photo of Noah back on the mantel with trembling hands. My mother appeared at my side then, her presence grounding me in a way that nothing else could. "Diana," she said, her tone sharp enough to cut through the tension. "I think you've said enough." Diana bristled, but she didn't argue. She retreated to the kitchen, leaving my mother and me in a heavy silence. "Don't let her get to you," Mom said quietly, her hand resting on my arm. "She's just trying to deflect. She knows what Claire has done." That admission hit me like a punch to the gut. "You think she knows?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "She's her mother," Mom said simply. "Of course she knows." Her words confirmed what I'd been dreading. This wasn't just Claire's betrayal, it was a family affair. Diana and Howard had likely known all along, and had chosen to protect Claire instead of holding her accountable. The thought made my blood boil. As the reception dragged on, I retreated to my father's study, desperate for a moment of quiet. I sank into his worn leather chair, the exhaustion of the day settling over me like a weight I couldn't shake. My mind raced with fragments of memories, each one laced with questions I couldn't yet answer. The business trips, the late-night phone calls, the way Claire had started pulling away, not just from me but from Noah. It had been subtle at first, a missed doctor's appointment here, a forgotten bedtime story there. But over time, it became clear that she wasn't fully present. I'd attributed it to the stress of Noah's illness, never suspecting there was something more sinister at play. I pulled out my phone, the photo of Claire and her lover glaring back at me from the screen. My thumb hovered over the delete button, but I couldn't bring myself to press it. This wasn't just evidence of her infidelity, it was a reminder of what I was up against. I didn't know what my next move would be, but one thing was certain. I wouldn't let her get away with this. Not after abandoning me. Not after abandoning Noah. Claire thought she could escape the consequences of her actions, but she was wrong. As I sat in the dim light of the study, my anger solidified into resolve. This wasn't just about revenge, it was about justice. For Noah, for me, for everything we'd lost because of her selfishness. I would make her regret ever thinking she could betray me and walk away unscathed. The days after the funeral were a blur of condolences, casseroles, and sleepless nights. People came and went, offering words that felt more rehearsed than genuine. He's in a better place now. He's not suffering anymore. Their well-meaning attempts to comfort me only left me more hollow. What better place could there be than in my arms, laughing over cartoons, or insisting on pancakes for dinner? Grief clung to me like a second skin, but beneath it, anger churned like a storm waiting to break. The photo of Claire in Hawaii wouldn't leave my mind, haunting me every time I closed my eyes. She wasn't just absent at Noah's funeral, she was celebrating her freedom, as though our son's death had been her ticket to paradise. I busied myself with sorting through Noah's room, hoping the distraction would dull the edges of my pain. His favorite stuffed penguin sat on his bed, worn and slightly lopsided from years of cuddling. I picked it up, the familiar weight stirring a fresh wave of tears. He'd carried it everywhere, even to the hospital. As I placed the penguin on his pillow, something on Claire's side of the room caught my eye. A stack of papers on her desk, carelessly left in plain sight. It wasn't like Claire to leave anything disorganized. Her life was a series of meticulous lists and color-coded schedules. Curiosity, or maybe instinct, drew me closer. The top sheet stopped me cold. It was a life insurance policy. Noah's name was printed in bold letters at the top, and Claire's was listed as the sole beneficiary. My heart pounded as I flipped through the pages, each one revealing more than the last. The policy was worth $1 million, taken out just 6 months after Noah's diagnosis. I'd never been consulted, never even seen these papers before. What hit me hardest, though, was the amendment. Weeks before Noah died, Claire had removed me as a beneficiary. Her signature stared back at me, a smug reminder of the decision she made without me. My hands shook as I rifled through the stack, finding receipts for loans she'd taken out against the policy. She had used the money, and for what? Plane tickets? Cocktails by the pool? Her lover's expensive taste? I sank into the chair, staring at the mess of papers. This wasn't just betrayal, it was theft. Claire had stolen from our family, from Noah, to fund her escape. The realization hit me like a freight train. Noah's death wasn't just the end of my son's life. It was the moment Claire decided to bury our marriage alongside him. My phone buzzed on the desk, pulling me out of my thoughts. The number was unlisted, and for a moment, I considered ignoring it. But something told me to answer. Hello? My voice was rough, the weight of everything pressing down on me. I need to talk to you, a woman's voice said. It was unfamiliar, hesitant, yet filled with urgency. It's about Claire. I gripped the phone tighter. Who is this? My name's Mia. She hesitated, as though weighing her next words. I know what she's been doing. I know about Hawaii. And I know you're not going to like what I have to tell you. My chest tightened. Why should I trust you? You shouldn't, she admitted. But you should hear me out. Meet me at the coffee shop on Main. Now. The call disconnected, leaving me staring at the phone. Mia. The name didn't ring a bell, but the urgency in her voice was impossible to ignore. Part of me hesitated. What if this was a mistake? What if she was some crank with too much time on her hands? But another part, the part that couldn't stop replaying that photo of Claire in Hawaii, urged me to go. I needed answers, and whoever this Mia was, she seemed to have them. I grabbed the papers, stuffing them into a folder. If Mia had information, I'd be ready to confront her with evidence of my own. The anger I'd been suppressing since the funeral simmered just below the surface, threatening to boil over. As I left the house, I glanced back at Noah's room. The penguin sat on his bed, a silent witness to everything falling apart. I promised him, silently, that I'd make this right. Whatever Mia had to say, whatever truth she carried, I was ready for it. Or at least, I thought I was. What I didn't realize then was that this meeting wouldn't just confirm my suspicions. it would open a door to something far worse. Something I couldn't have imagined, even in my darkest moments. The coffee shop on Main was the kind of place Claire used to hate. Plain, unassuming, without the flair she always demanded in her life. As I walked in, the smell of burnt coffee beans and cheap pastries hit me. A single glance was enough to spot her. She sat at the corner table by the window, a woman with dark auburn hair pulled into a neat ponytail, her posture rigid. She wasn't what I expected. Mia. She didn't look up as I approached, instead stirring her coffee in slow, deliberate circles. Her phone sat face down on the table, a small notebook beside it. I slid into the chair across from her, dropping my folder onto the table with a dull thud. She finally looked at me, her green eyes sharp and assessing. "I didn't think you'd come," she said, her voice low but steady. "You have 5 minutes to explain why I'm here," I said, leaning back, arms crossed. She raised an eyebrow, unfazed by my tone. "Fair enough. I'll get straight to the point. Your wife, Claire, has been seeing my ex-boyfriend for over a year." The words were a punch to the gut, but I didn't flinch. "I already know that," I said flatly, though the bitterness in my voice betrayed me. "Oh, you know?" She tilted her head, her tone mocking. "Do you know about the money? Or how they're planning to use it to start their little dream life together in Maui?" I froze. "What money?" Mia leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. "The life insurance policy. The $1 million payout your wife secured after she had your son's name removed from the documents. She promised half of it to Brandon, my ex, so they could buy a beachfront property together." My stomach twisted. I wanted to accuse her of lying, to shove my chair back and leave, but I didn't. Instead, I stayed, my fingers digging into the edge of the table. "And how exactly do you know all this?" She smirked, a humorless expression. "Brandon isn't exactly discreet. He's been bragging about it for weeks." At first, I didn't believe him. Claire always struck me as too polished for a guy like him. But then he started showing me proof. Mia reached for her phone, scrolling with quick precision before sliding it across the table. Text messages filled the screen. Messages from Claire to Brandon. "Claire, the payout came through. It's more than enough. We'll be out of here by the end of the month. Brandon, Maui's waiting, babe. Just don't let him suspect anything. Claire, he's too broken to see straight. It's already done." My chest tightened, my breath shallow as I read each line. The Claire in those messages was someone I didn't recognize. Cold, calculating, detached. "I thought he was exaggerating," Mia continued, "but then I found more. Bank transfers, flight itineraries, even a picture of the house they're planning to buy. She's been funneling the money into an account with both their names on it." I stared at her, my mind reeling. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because she's playing both of us," Mia said bluntly. "She promised Brandon a fresh start, but I've seen the way she operates. The moment she doesn't need him anymore, she'll drop him, just like she's dropping you. And me? I'm already collateral damage. I've got nothing left to lose." Her words hung in the air, sharp and bitter. I didn't trust her, not completely, but I couldn't ignore the evidence she was laying out in front of me. "What do you want from me?" I asked, my voice low. Mia leaned back, crossing her arms. "Revenge. Justice. Call it whatever you want. Brandon doesn't get to walk away scot-free, and Claire sure as hell doesn't either. You want to bring them down? I can help you, but we have to act fast." I studied her, searching for any sign of deception. She met my gaze head-on, unflinching. I didn't trust her motivations. There was too much anger behind her words, too much venom. But I knew one thing for certain. Claire had lied to me, stolen from me, betrayed me in ways I hadn't even begun to comprehend. "I'm in," I said finally, my voice like steel. Mia nodded, her expression softening slightly. "Good. Because this is just the beginning." She reached into her bag, pulling out a thick envelope and sliding it across the table. "Everything you need to know is in here. Names, dates, bank accounts. It's all connected. We just have to find the right thread to pull." I picked up the envelope, the weight of it matching the heaviness in my chest. As I stood to leave, Mia called after me. "Jacob," she said, her tone softer now. I paused, glancing back at her. I'm sorry about your son. For what it's worth, I think Claire's the one who's broken, not you. Her words lingered as I walked out of the coffee shop and into the cold night air. My mind raced with the possibilities, the next steps, the ways I could make Claire and Brandon pay for what they'd done. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming what little dignity I had left, about protecting Noah's memory from the people who thought they could profit from his death. They had no idea who they were up against. I spent the night poring over the envelope Mia had given me. It was a maze of text messages, bank statements, and photos, each one a punch to the gut. Every page confirmed what I already feared. Claire wasn't just a selfish woman running off with her lover. She was a schemer, a strategist, and her betrayal ran deeper than I ever imagined. The money trail was damning. Deposits and transfers into an account I didn't recognize, all under Claire's name, linked directly to Brandon. But what stopped me cold was the evidence of collaboration. Her parents, Diana and Howard, were involved. Their names popped up in emails and on checks tied to business ventures that didn't exist. I should have seen it earlier, the way Diana and Howard always coddled Claire, treating her like she could do no wrong. They'd always blamed me for our marital problems, subtly undermining me with snide remarks disguised as advice. But now, I realized they hadn't just been enabling her. They'd been actively helping her. The tipping point came when I found an email exchange between Diana and Claire. Diana, Jacob won't suspect a thing. He's too focused on Noah. Just make sure the papers are signed before he catches on. Claire, he won't notice. He's too broken to care. And once it's done, it's done. The papers. What papers? My heart raced as I flipped through more documents, searching for answers. Then I found it. A property transfer agreement for our family home. The place where I grew up, where Noah spent his final days, was being sold. Claire had forged my signature, making it look like I'd agreed to the sale. They were planning to take everything. The insurance payout, the house, even our joint savings. I could almost hear Diana's sharp, dismissive voice in my head. It's what's best for Claire. The anger I'd been holding back exploded, but I had no outlet. I paced the living room, fists clenched, trying to keep my breathing steady. They thought they could manipulate me, use my grief to blind me. They thought they could steal everything I had left and walk away unscathed. But they were wrong. By morning, my plan was beginning to take shape. I needed more proof, more leverage, and I knew exactly where to start. My mother, always my anchor, had been hinting at things for days, things she'd seen and suspected. If anyone could help me connect the dots, it was her. I found her in the kitchen, a steaming cup of tea in her hands. She looked up as I entered, her sharp eyes immediately narrowing. "What's wrong?" she asked, setting the cup down. "They're trying to sell the house," I said bluntly. "Claire and her parents. They forged my signature." Her face tightened, her lips pressing into a thin line. "I knew it," she muttered. "You knew?" I asked, leaning forward. "I suspected," she admitted. "Diana's been sniffing around for months, asking questions about the property. She even tried to get your father to sign something when he was confused, but I intercepted it. That hit me like a blow to the chest. My father, with his slipping memory, was another pawn in their game. They had no shame, no limits to how far they'd go. She said it was just a precaution. My mother continued, her voice trembling with anger. But I didn't trust her. I kept the papers. They're in the study. She didn't need to say more. I hurried to the study, rifling through the drawers until I found the documents. There it was, a legal form authorizing the sale of the house, with my father's signature scrawled at the bottom. A forgery. They thought he wouldn't remember, my mother said, standing behind me now. They thought I wouldn't notice. But I've been watching them, Jacob. Diana's always been manipulative. But this is something else. I sat down, the weight of everything crashing over me. They're not just after the money, I said quietly. They're after everything. The house, the savings. Everything Noah and I loved. My mother placed a hand on my shoulder, her grip firm. Then don't let them win. Fight back. Her words lit a fire in me. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about Noah's legacy, about protecting what little I had left of him. Claire and her family thought they could outsmart me, But they underestimated one thing: my resolve. They wanted to play games? Fine. But I wasn't going to sit back and let them take everything. If they thought I was broken, they were about to learn just how wrong they were. I spent the rest of the day gathering every piece of evidence I could find. Bank records, emails, documents from Mia's envelope. It all started forming a bigger picture. Claire and her parents had been planning this for months, maybe even longer. They were careful, calculating, but they'd made mistakes, and I was going to exploit every single one of them. When night fell, I sat in Noah's room, holding his stuffed penguin. "I'll fix this," I whispered into the darkness. "I promise you, Noah, I won't let them take what's ours." The storm inside me had calmed, replaced by something colder, more dangerous. Claire and her family thought they could destroy me, but they'd forgotten one crucial thing. I wasn't just grieving, I was preparing. Claire thought she was untouchable. Her meticulous lies, the forged documents, the money funneled into secret accounts. She believed she had covered every angle. But what she didn't count on was me finding the cracks. That's the thing about being underestimated. It gives you an advantage. And after seeing how far she and her parents were willing to go, I realized I had to strike first. The house was the key. It wasn't just a property. It was a piece of my family's soul. My father built it with his own hands, one nail and board at a time. It was where I grew up, where Noah learned to walk, and where we sat for countless nights, holding him through the worst of his illness. It was sacred. And Claire? She wanted to sell it to bankroll her escape. That morning, I called Marcus, an old friend who had transitioned from our high school debate team to a sharp legal career. He owed me a favor, and now was the time to cash in. "Jacob," Marcus said after hearing me out, his tone serious, "this is messy. If they forged your signature, we can fight the sale. But we need more than your word. We need proof, witnesses, documents, anything to show a pattern of deceit." "I've got plenty," I replied, thinking of the stack of evidence Mia had handed over and the forged documents my mother had intercepted. "But I need to know how we stop this before it goes any further." Marcus sighed on the other end of the line. "We need to move quickly. If they finalize the sale before we act, undoing it will be a nightmare. Let me pull some strings and dig into the legal filings. In the meantime, gather everything you can. Don't leave anything to chance." I thanked him and hung up, my mind already racing. Marcus was right. The clock was ticking. Claire and her parents weren't wasting time, and neither could I. I started by laying out everything Mia had given me, pinning it to the corkboard in my father's study like a detective piecing together a case. Bank transfers, emails, photos. It all painted a damning picture. But I needed more. My mother was my first ally. She kept a watchful eye on Diana's manipulations for months and was all too eager to help. "Your father might not remember everything clearly," she said, "but I do." Diana and Howard tried to pressure him into signing those papers more than once. I kept notes every time they showed up here unannounced. She handed me a small notebook, the pages filled with dates and detailed accounts of their visits. It was more evidence, another layer to add to the case I was building. Next, I reached out to Mia. As much as I hated relying on her, she had insight into Claire's plans that I couldn't ignore. "They're meeting with the realtor tomorrow to finalize the sale," she said over the phone. "If you're going to stop them, you'll need to be there." "How do you know this?" I asked, suspicion creeping into my voice. "Because Claire doesn't think I'm a threat," Mia replied. "She keeps me in the loop, thinking I'll just go along with it. But she doesn't realize I'm one step ahead of her now." Her bitterness was palpable, and while I didn't trust her completely, I knew she was right about one thing. Claire underestimated us both. With the pieces falling into place, I spent the rest of the day preparing. I copied every document, recorded every detail, and made sure I had backups. I wasn't leaving anything to chance. By the time night fell, the study was a battlefield of papers and plans. My mother walked in, a cup of tea in hand, and set it down beside me. "You've got that look in your eye," she said. "What look?" I asked, glancing up from the corkboard. "The same look your father used to get when someone tried to cheat him out of a deal," she said with a faint smile. "Don't let them take this from us, Jacob. Don't let them take Noah's home." Her words hit me like a lightning bolt. This wasn't just about me or even the house. It was about protecting what Noah loved, what he left behind. The rage I'd felt at Claire's betrayal had evolved into something sharper, more focused. They won't, I promised. The next morning, I dressed like a man going to war. Suit pressed, tie knotted, folder in hand. Marcus had already filed a motion to halt the sale, but I knew I needed to show up and confront them head-on. As I stepped out the door, my mother handed me something small, a worn, stuffed penguin. "Take it with you," she said softly. "For luck." I slipped it into my briefcase, the familiar weight grounding me. It wasn't just a toy. It was a reminder of Noah's laughter, his resilience, his love for the life Claire had so easily abandoned. When I arrived at the realtor's office, I saw Claire's car parked out front. Inside, she and Diana were already seated at the table, their polished smiles masking the lies they'd been spinning for months. "Jacob," Claire said, feigning surprise as I entered. "What are you doing here?" I set the folder down on the table, opening it to reveal the evidence of their fraud. "Stopping you," I said coldly. The look on her face was priceless. But this wasn't over yet. Not by a long shot. Claire's face went pale the moment I opened the folder. She wasn't prepared for this. None of them were. Diana sat beside her, her usual smug demeanor faltering as her eyes darted to the documents spread across the table. The realtor, caught in the crossfire of a battle he hadn't signed up for, looked deeply uncomfortable. "What is this?" Claire asked, her voice laced with faux confusion, though the quiver in it betrayed her nerves. "You tell me," I replied, leaning forward, "because it looks like a stack of evidence proving that you and your mother have been forging documents, siphoning money, and trying to sell this house behind my back." Diana's lips thinned. "Jacob, there's no need for dramatics. This is a simple real estate matter." "A simple real estate matter?" I shot back, my voice rising. "This is my home, Diana. My family's home. And you tried to take it away by forging my signature. Did you think I wouldn't notice? Or did you think I was too broken to fight back?" Claire shifted uncomfortably, her polished confidence unraveling. "Jacob, please. We've been under a lot of stress. We were just trying to handle things while you were grieving." I slammed my hand on the table, startling everyone. "Don't you dare use Noah's death to justify this. While I was burying my son, you were plotting to steal everything we built together. And for what? To run off with Brandon and live your little fantasy life in Hawaii?" Her eyes widened. I'd hit a nerve. "You don't understand." "I understand perfectly," I cut her off. "I understand that you've been lying to me for months. I understand that you've been funneling money into secret accounts. And I understand that you're willing to destroy what little I have left, all for some cheap thrill." Diana tried to interject, but I wasn't finished. "And you," I said, turning to her, "have been complicit in all of this, manipulating my father, forging signatures, covering for Claire while she betrayed our family. Did you really think I wouldn't figure it out?" For the first time, Diana looked rattled. "Jacob, you're being unreasonable. We were only trying to protect Claire's interests. You've been unstable since Noah's death." "Unstable?" I laughed bitterly. "You mean grieving, mourning the son I loved, more than anything while Claire was busy planning her escape. If anyone's unstable, it's her, and you, for enabling her." The realtor cleared his throat, clearly regretting his decision to show up for work that day. "I think I should step out?" "No," I said sharply, turning to him. "You stay. You're about to see just how illegal this so-called real estate matter really is." I pulled out my phone and played the recording Mia had given me, a conversation between Claire and Brandon discussing their plans for the insurance money. "Claire, the payout's in the account. Once the house sells, we'll have enough for the down payment on the Maui place." Brandon, "What about Jacob?" Claire, "He's too distracted to notice. He'll never see it coming." The room fell silent. Claire's face turned an ashen shade of white, and Diana's composure shattered. "You recorded me?" Claire whispered, her voice barely audible. "No," I said, leaning back in my chair. "But someone who knows the kind of person you are did, and she was more than happy to help me expose you." Claire's eyes darted to the door, as if she were considering bolting. "You can't prove anything," she said weakly. Oh, but I can. I slid more documents across the table, bank statements, emails, and evidence of forged signatures. Every transaction, every forged document, every lie. It's all here. And Marcus has already filed a motion to halt the sale. This house isn't going anywhere. The silence stretched on, heavy and suffocating. Claire looked at Diana, but for once, her mother had no comforting words to offer. You thought I'd just roll over and let you win, I said, my voice low but steady. But you underestimated me. You always have. This ends now. Diana opened her mouth to speak, but the door swung open before she could say anything. Marcus walked in, holding a stack of legal papers. Sorry I'm late, he said, his tone casual. I was just at the courthouse filing an injunction to freeze all property transactions tied to this house. He set the papers down on the table and turned to the realtor. You might want to walk away from this deal. It's going to get messy. The realtor didn't hesitate. I think that's my cue to leave, he muttered, grabbing his briefcase and practically running out the door. With him gone, I turned back to Claire and Diana. You have two options, I said. You can walk away now, leave this house, and give up on whatever scheme you had planned. Or you can fight me, and I'll make sure you both end up in court and on the front page of every newspaper in town. Claire stared at me, her mask of control completely gone. For the first time, I saw fear in her eyes. Diana, however, wasn't ready to surrender. You're bluffing, she spat. I met her gaze head-on. Try me. Claire grabbed Diana's arm. Mom, stop. He's not bluffing. Diana hesitated, but the look in Claire's eyes convinced her. Without another word, they stood and walked out, their once confident strides now shaky and uncertain. As the door closed behind them, I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. Marcus clapped me on the back. You did good, he said, but I wasn't celebrating yet. This was just one battle. The war wasn't over. Not yet. The fallout began the moment Claire and Diana walked out of the realtor's office. They left behind the smugness they had carried for so long, their carefully curated facade shattered. But for me, that moment was just the beginning. The confrontation had stopped the sale of the house, but the damage they'd tried to inflict was far more extensive than I'd realized. Marcus wasted no time filing motions to freeze all joint assets and accounts. They're not just after the house, Jacob, he told me as we sat in his office later that day. They've been playing a long game, trying to drain everything you own. If we don't act fast, they could still slip through the cracks. I nodded, the weight of his words sinking in. What's our next move? We expose them, he said simply. All of them. Claire, Diana, Howard, everyone who had a hand in this. We hit them with fraud charges, property theft, and anything else we can prove. It was a daunting prospect, but I was ready. This wasn't just about getting justice for me anymore. It was about protecting Noah's memory and ensuring that Claire and her family faced the consequences of their actions. The first step was gathering more evidence. Marcus and I pored over every document, email, and transaction we could find, building a case that left no room for doubt. Mia proved to be an invaluable ally, providing even more damning information about Claire's secret accounts and her relationship with Brandon. You don't realize how much she bragged to him, Mia said during one of our meetings. She thought he was her partner in crime, but Brandon was careless. He left a trail everywhere he went. The evidence painted a grim picture of Claire's betrayal. She hadn't just siphoned money from the life insurance policy. She had also funneled funds from our joint savings, creating fake expenses to cover her tracks. Diana and Howard had been complicit every step of the way, using their influence to hide her actions and manipulate legal documents. With Marcus leading the charge, we filed a civil suit against Claire and her parents. The legal process was grueling, each step a reminder of just how much they had tried to take from me. But as the weeks went by, the tide began to turn. Claire's lover, Brandon, became the first crack in their armor. Faced with mounting pressure, he turned on her, providing testimony that corroborated everything Mia and I had uncovered. His statements confirmed Claire's intentions to steal the insurance payout and use it to start a new life in Hawaii. Diana and Howard weren't as quick to fold. They tried to spin the narrative, painting themselves as victims who had only been trying to protect Claire during a difficult time. But the evidence against them was overwhelming. Emails, bank records, and forged documents all pointed to their active involvement in the scheme. The final blow came when Marcus uncovered an even deeper layer of deception. Claire and Diana had attempted to manipulate my father into signing over not just the house, but other family assets as well. Marcus found proof that they had targeted him during moments of confusion caused by his dementia, hoping to exploit his condition for their gain. "That's not just fraud," Marcus said when he showed me the documents. "That's elder abuse. And the courts won't take that lightly." When the charges were filed, the weight of their crimes finally caught up with them. Claire, Diana, and Howard faced a litany of legal consequences, from fraud to property theft to conspiracy. The public exposure was brutal. Their once respected reputations in our small town reduced to nothing but gossip and disgrace. Claire, of course, tried to play the victim. "I didn't know what I was doing," she claimed during a deposition. "I was grieving. I made mistakes." But her tears didn't fool anyone. Not the lawyers, not the judge, and certainly not me. She had made her choices, and now she was paying for them. In the end, the courts ruled in my favor. The house was officially mine again, along with the remaining assets Claire hadn't managed to siphon away. The life insurance payout, which she had planned to use for her new life, was frozen and redirected to its original purpose, supporting pediatric cancer patients in Noah's name. It wasn't just a legal victory, it was a moral one. Every step of the way, I had fought to protect what mattered most: my son's memory and the legacy he left behind. But even with the legal battle won, the scars of their betrayal remained. Claire's actions had fractured something deep within me, something that couldn't be easily repaired. She had shown me the depths of her selfishness, and while I had triumphed over her schemes, it came at a cost. As for Diana and Howard, they retreated from the public eye, their reputations in ruins. They had spent years building their influence, only to see it crumble in the face of their greed. I couldn't bring Noah back, but I could ensure that Claire and her family would never hurt anyone else the way they had hurt me. The fallout was complete. The house was safe, the money redirected to a cause that mattered, and the people who had tried to destroy me were facing the consequences of their actions. But the fight wasn't over yet, not for me. Because while the legal battle was behind me, the journey toward healing had just begun. The house was quiet now, a kind of quiet that settled deep in my chest. For months, it had been filled with the chaos of lawyers, documents, and the weight of betrayal. But now, with the legal battle over and Claire and her family facing the consequences of their actions, there was a sense of stillness, a bittersweet calm that came with knowing the storm had passed, even if the damage remained. Noah's room was just as he had left it. His favorite stuffed penguin sat on the bed. Its worn seams a testament to how much he had loved it. The colorful drawings he'd taped to the walls were still there, and for a moment, I could almost hear his laughter. I sat on the edge of his bed, holding the penguin, letting the memories wash over me. The court's decision had ensured the house would stay in the family. But it wasn't just about the house anymore. It was about Noah's legacy, protecting everything he had loved and making sure his memory meant something more than just heartache. That's why I took the life insurance payout, every penny Claire had tried to steal, and set up the Noah Thompson Foundation. The foundation would fund pediatric cancer research and support families going through what we had endured. It felt right, like something Noah would have wanted. He had always been so full of compassion, even when he was the one in pain. The first grant went to the pediatric cancer ward where he had spent so much time. I visited the hospital to meet the families it would help, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I felt a spark of hope. Noah's name would live on, not just in my heart, but in the lives of those he would continue to touch. But moving forward didn't mean forgetting. On a crisp fall morning, I made my way to the cemetery. The air was cool, the leaves crunching under my feet as I approached Noah's grave. His headstone was simple, just the way he would have liked it, with a small engraving of a penguin in the corner. I knelt down, brushing away a few stray leaves, and placed the stuffed penguin at the base of the stone. "You'd be proud, buddy," I whispered. "The house is safe, the foundation's up and running, and your memory is helping so many people. I promised you I'd fix this, and I did." The wind rustled the trees, and for a moment, It felt like Noah was there, his spirit woven into the world around me. Your grandma outsmarted them all, I said, a faint smile tugging at my lips. She was brilliant, just like you always said. As I stood, my father approached, his steps slow but steady. His memory wasn't what it used to be, but today, his eyes were clear. He's at peace now, he said quietly, his voice steady. I hope so, I replied, my throat tightening. He touched the penguin, his hand lingering on its soft fabric. Noah told me something once, not long before he passed, he said. He said, don't worry about Dad. He's stronger than everyone thinks. I swallowed hard, tears blurring my vision. He said that? My father nodded, a faint smile on his lips. He was right, you know. We stood there in silence, the weight of grief and love mingling in the cool air. A monarch butterfly landed on the headstone, its delicate wings catching the sunlight like stained glass. My father reached for it, but I gently caught his hand. Let it be, I said softly. The butterfly took flight, spiraling upward, free and unburdened. I watched it until it disappeared, understanding for the first time that true strength wasn't in revenge or victory. It was in letting go. I slipped my arm around my father's shoulders, guiding him back toward the car. Pancakes? I asked, a smile creeping into my voice. His face lit up, a rare moment of clarity shining through. Pancakes. Noah always loved pancakes. Yes, he did, I said, my heart full of bittersweet warmth. As we walked away, I glanced back at the penguin standing guard at the headstone. It wasn't just a symbol of Noah. It was a reminder of everything we had fought for. The butterfly had shown me the way forward. It wasn't about forgetting the pain, but about honoring the love that came with it. And as I drove home with my father, the weight of the past finally began to lift. Noah was gone, but his spirit remained, guiding me toward a life where love and resilience could coexist with loss. It wasn't triumph, it was survival. And for the first time in a long time, it felt like enough.